you were involved in that McCoy Tyner record, Guitars. And I guess a couple of the songs you co-wrote and you arranged one, but then I was watching, there's a YouTube clip of you and McCoy Tyner doing the improvisations, which is there's like three improvisations in that clip. And you do one and then you do another and you say, let's try something that's completely atonal. On your mark, get set, go. And he totally goes for it. It was really cool to watch. I can only imagine what that experience is like. And then his smile after you finish the third improv.
Yeah. Well, okay. A little background on that session. I mean, first of all, the other musicians who played on the other tunes, I mean, it was a bunch of guests who improvised and played tunes with McCoy on that record. But the rest of the rhythm section was Ron Carter and Jack DeJohnette. And I can't communicate how intimidated I was to be in the room with those musicians. Like I mean, I'd been listening to both since I was in high school, and have huge admiration for both. So, but and they were, I later got to know Jack DeJohnette a bit, and he's very extremely generous, and he was very, they were both very nice with me, but I could tell that I was using a bright gold color Stratotone solid body. No, it was not gold. I'm colorblind. I think it was green
It was
gold.
kind of sparkly, I think, maybe.
A little sparkly, odd looking Stratotone guitar from the 1950s or early 60s on that session. And I could tell that Mr. Carter was a little skeptical.
Well, also you pulled out the EBO, which I don't know if that's part of their thing or
yeah. Well, what happened was they went out, like we worked on the tunes that we were working on together, and then they went out to lunch, and then I was there, and McCoy Tyner was there, so I said, well, let's improvise, and and he was totally open and game for anything. He was just a great musician, great person, no attitude of any kind, that I could tell.
Totally receptive. I mean, I think on the third one, you say, why don't we start with something that's kind of more free, and then we'll find a focal point. And he's like, okay, let's do it. I mean,
What I didn't know at the time is that he hadn't improvised freely, at least not on records, since his work with John Coltrane.
Wow.
And so what I was doing, just because, hey, I'm in the room, we're in a recording studio, let's get something down, turned out to be this fairly historic thing, unbeknownst to me. So
that's amazing.
It was huge luck and huge generosity on his part, is all I can say. I mean, let me be honest about those sessions. I wish I could say they happened because McCoy Tyner was sitting around and listened to me play on some other record and said, hey, let's schedule a recording session with Marc Ribot. But that's not the way it went. It was clearly some management or record company decision saying, let's reach out to these other players from other scenes to create a more, like to increase the demographic or something, or do something interesting or whatever. I don't want to I would never assign base motives to a record company person, but
no.
But anyways, I don't think it was McCoy's idea. And I wound up doing, a couple of other live dates after the record. We did a week out at Yoshi's in San Francisco. And I was never a great straight ahead player. I've tried my very best, but no less than Jack McDuff informed me in very clear terms of that fact. So I do what I do. I have great affection for a lot of different types of kinds of jazz. McCoy and I, like, McCoy came through the whole history of jazz up to the free jazz movement, up to I would say the apex of that was Sonship, the Sonship record with John Coltrane. And I came from like working with soul bands, rock bands, kind of like punk jazz stuff through the Lounge Lizards. I came from like a different direction, working my way back, towards that. And it was like, I remember I told McCoy backstage when we were playing one of these gigs, I say, because I knew a bunch of the tunes from Sonship, and those are great compositions. I said, I started playing them. I said, why don't we do this? And he kind of laughed and said, I didn't do it. You know what I mean? And it was a really interesting moment because, you know what I mean? For me, like, I'm like a white guy who had the experiences I had and was looking on this as, something I learned. I suspect that for McCoy Tyner, it was, there were emotional risks in making those records. I suspect that friends were won and lost because of making those records, that, it was an emotional, social, political act to play in that way, not just of, oh, isn't it cool?
No, those are like dense,
experimental. You know what I mean?
it's such dense explorations.
Yeah. And I think psychologically, in every way, spiritually, it took a real commitment
to
play in that way at that time that nobody who's coming at it, 40 years later, 50 years later, can really imagine. And so when he chuckled and said, I'm glad you know that stuff, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
I think
he lived it.
He lived it. And I think there was a lot of deep personal history behind his saying that. And at the end, I felt like, I'm so glad I got that experience. If I want to be honest about it, I would say that, like McCoy and I were like building a bridge from two shores, and we got like this close, but from distance, it looked like
that smile that he gives you at the end of the improvisations. I think there was at least that moment where the two spans touched.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, I'm happy about those. I was honored to get called for those recordings.